o'clock. We have an overwhelming response to this edition of Avantis Conversations. My name is Rishi Agrawal. I'm a co-founder and CEO of Avantis RegTech. On behalf of everyone at Avantis and Penalties, it is an honor to welcome all the panelists we have. We have stalwarts from the industry today, and we are going to be talking about and how to manage it. Panelists, I request you, whoever is not speaking, go on mute. So let me take a minute, introduce our panelists today. Let me start with Rajkumar. Rajkumar heads compliance, legal, and corporate social responsibility. He's a veteran of the Air Force with over 35 years of experience, first as an air warrior and later as a company secretary and compliance officer. After his initial career in the Indian Air Force, he worked in finance, manufacturing, construction, retail. Let me now introduce Amitava Ghosh. Amitava Ghosh is a director of HR, Group Head, Employee Relationship and Compliance at Chennai, popularly known as Ola. He is responsible for Ola Mobility, Ola Electric, Ola Fleet, Ola Food, Ola Financial Services, and Riddler. He is an employment law practitioner in the field of industrial and employee relationships, compliance, and employment law. Amitava has co-authored 6 international research papers and 14 nationally published articles. He has a fellowship awarded for the co-authored research paper, Compliance and Firm Performance, by RDW ILO Geneva, Switzerland in July of 2013. Amitava is an author of 2 books, The Economy in Rising, India Rising, and Labor and Environment Laws in India. And during the course of the conversation, we will request Amitava to show us these books and for the knowledge for us here. Welcome, Amitava. Our third participant is Rama Subramanian K from Apollo Hospital.
Namaste.
He heads Compliance and Secretarial Office with Apollo Hospitals. Rama Subramanian has diversified industry experience of over 20 years. Prior to Apollo, he's worked with Wabco, TVS, Allsec, and Dandapani and Company. He is a BSc graduate with LLB and Masters in HRM. Our last panelist today is JAYAPRAKASH from Panasonic Appliances India Limited. JAYAPRAKASH is the Chief Financial Officer and Company Secretary at Panasonic. He's the winner of CFO 100 Roles of Honor for 2 consecutive years in 2019 and 20. He's also the winner of the CFO Story Awards 2019. JAYAPRAKASH has over 20 years of rich experience in IT industry, service industry, manufacturing, with deep focus on financial and risk management. He's a qualified chartered accountant, company secretary, and cost accountant. Thank you so much, all the panelists, for taking the time and joining us on this discussion. I can see there are already 200 plus participants live. As we start the conversation today, let me take a minute or two and lay the context. For that, just allow me to bring a couple of slides here. I assume that my screen is visible.
Yeah.
So compliance management in India is fairly complex. There are about 1,536 acts, 69,233 compliances with 6,618 filings, broken down at central, state, and local level and classified into 7 broad categories, including labor, finance and taxation, environment, health and safety, commercial, secretarial, industry specific, and general. When we look at the state and central classifications, out of 1,536 acts, around 677 are central and 859 are state-oriented acts, leading to about 25,537 odd central compliances and about 43,000 state compliances. A small, medium, and large size company in India deals with tens of acts, thousands of compliances, and hundreds of filings in a year. As the size of the company grows from a small to medium to large, the compliance burden exponentially multiplies. Today, our panel is going to deliberate on the compliance burden in India, and we will learn from the collective experience of the panelists on how they manage this compliance burden in their respective companies. That is the topic of our discussion. So let me start our discussion and throw a question at Rajkumar ji. So Rajkumar ji, you have been a part of Sony Pictures now, and you've worked in a variety of industries. I would like to hear from you your views on key challenges in managing compliance in India.
Uh, Thank you, Rishi, for bringing out beautifully the context. And I want to just for repetition's sake, I want to just again tell the viewers the enormity of challenge which we have. 1,536 acts, 69,000 compliances, different compliances, 6,600 filings. How on earth anybody could remember all this? And the government expects, the enforcement agencies expect us, the poor compliance officers, to remember all these things. I think it's not done. I have been in compliance field for last 25 years and have been working in various industries. Every industry has its own challenges. Finance industry has its own challenges. I remember there was a time when NBFCs were not defined. NBFCs were only defined in mid 90s only. Before that, NBFCs were not defined. And even today, NBFCs face their own challenges. To talk about broadcasting industry, I've been in broadcasting industry for last 13 years, and in broadcasting industry, you see, it's another industry which is highly regulated one. For every channel, every change, we have to approach to the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. I remember that once our channel application was held up for more than 2 years. In 2 years, actually, the entire business dynamics changed. And then government wants us to launch the channel within a specified time. And on top of that, once we launch the channel, the government requires us to obtain permission for every change in the channel, be it its name, its logo, its genre. The government wants us to obtain, approval for all these changes. And when we make application, it takes its own time. And by the time, sometimes we feel frustrated. Sometimes by the time the approval comes, the original purpose, original motive of the application itself is lost. So another challenge in broadcasting industry is the security clearance. So the government, there are uplinking guidelines and there are downlinking guidelines, and as per these guidelines of Ministry of Information Broadcasting, all the directors and key employees of the company needs to undergo a process of security clearance, and the process of security clearance is conducted by Ministry of Home Affairs. And in some cases, in the case of companies uplinking from India, the said parties that they want, the requirement is to obtain the approval before appointing a director. Now, just imagine, I'm also a corporate law person. The corporate law, the company law requires, your directors to be within some proportion. And if some director resigns, then you have to fill that vacancy within 3 months. And here is another, instrumentality of the government, which requires that before appointing a director, one needs to obtain pre-clearance from MIB, Ministry of Information Broadcasting, and Ministry of Information Broadcasting will give the clearance only once it receives the security clearance from Ministry of Home Affairs. So by the time you apply to the government and receive the clearance, it must be at least 5-6 months. So how can you comply with the requirement of replacing your director within 3 months when you have this kind of another regulation which requires you to obtain pre-clearance for appointing a director? So this is the biggest challenge which we have, one of the biggest. Yeah.
Funny that when you talk about specific challenges of acquiring licenses, registrations, and permissions, and how they are interlinked and intertwined in their own way, and how it affects the business dynamics, the business plan that was created at a point in time,
Right.
clearly redundant. Now, let me switch over to Amitava Ghosh, and Amitava joins us from Ola. You all know Ola has been at the forefront of transforming urban mobility, has grown by leaps and bounds. It has done India proud. It is a Deca unicorn today, and a growth business which operates in so many cities, so many states, has its own set of challenges. So Amitava, I request you now to come in and enlighten our viewers on what these challenges are. How do you manage your compliances? Talk about challenges first. Let's hear from you.
So I'll start with the post-COVID part, and I will take you back. I'll take you back to 1991 as well. Labor law compliance, while we talk, which is now more so of an employment law compliance, but it's no more a labor compliance, because Industrial Dispute Act, although it has not changed, the interpretations of Supreme Court and Apex Court has given more focus that even a pilot of an airline is a workman. The general manager who is working on a project is a airline. But in a project where a storekeeper is working and drawing 11,000 rupees is not a workman. So the complexity of a compliance officer and to understand the law is still difficult. However, much has been laid, but more is awaited. The law, there are certain laws which needs to be amended, to be modified, and some needs to be really scrapped. Unless these are all done, compliance will always, I'm talking of HR compliance, which is employment law compliance, which will always remain a burden for all the employers, and there will be a lot of confusion, ambiguity, because till today the wages definition is not similar across the acts. The definition of employee versus workman is not clear in all the acts. If I pick up Payment of Bonus Act, and if I pick up Employees Provident Fund Act, or if I pick up ESI Act, all has gone through the changes. The enforcement officers, they themselves are not aware that what is right and what is wrong. So decide what is right and what is wrong. I'll give you a unique example of Tata Sky. While I was working with Team Lease, we picked up a mandate. The first mandate of ours for the consulting was Tata Sky. There was an inspection by the central government. There was an inspection by the state government. And both were claiming that they are the appropriate governments. The head of HR was confused. Now, if I have to break it down, the laws for Tata Sky would be the central government, where the establishment will be of a state government. Now, some companies and many companies do have multi-offices across the states. Now, Payment of a Gratuity Act is controlled, the appropriate government is central. It is not state then. Although all other regulation for that particular state remains with the state government. But Payment of Gratuity Act goes to the central government. So if the compliance officer is not aware with the comma and toto of the line what is written in the law and by the definition of establishment, it becomes really difficult for an organization to go through this and pass through this. I give you a unique example now what has happened during this COVID time. I am talking of Karnataka. Captain Manivanan, the IS officer secretary although in the Labor Department, although he's not there now. He started a portal immediately in April called Dasha and tried to bring all the grievances, the litigations of employees to file in that helpline. Now, we call all the employees as Annadatas or Udyogdatas. Now, according to Captain Manivanan, he says it is his dharma to take care of the compliance requirement of the hygiene factors and the termination regulations of the employees. If the Prime Minister of India says he is the Pradhan Sevak, then how come a Labour Secretary, Government of Karnataka, can float this? And finally, he has been transferred out. But the kind of compliance hit, the kind of litigations which has gone unnecessary for all the organizations. Now tell me one thing, while I do a layoff, why did the Constitution is silent about it? Is Article 21 not applicable here? Where is our Article 21? Why didn't the Disaster Management Act of 2005 was not regulated for employers? Why it is still silent? Why is Epidemic Act of 1897, which has got only 4 sections, have not been elaborated in the last 113 years, or rather 123 years?
I'm smiling here because the kind of specifics that you're talking about, there's
I will further talk on this. Interestingly, for a compliance officer, it becomes very difficult. Now the phase of retrenchment has gone through many companies, except the manufacturing, what I can talk about. I can talk about the service sector. The employers are unable to do business because there are no customers, no consumers. They're unable to buy products, they're unable to sell it. Why will I wait under Section 25F of Industrial Dispute Act and 25N of Industrial Dispute Act to go and file an application and wait for 3 months for the state appropriate government to give us a clearance? Whereas, interestingly, if you look into the Industrial Dispute Act, under Section 9A, Schedule 4, Regulation 11, talk something else. I can do a rationalization. Although Industrial Dispute Act has been called as the Magna Carta of us, of mother of all laws, but every time, trust me, when I pass through, I have to read through this time and again in the last 20 years. And probably till the time I will be practicing employment law, I have to go through this.
So it's very clear that we have a long road ahead of us. There's so much that needs to be done in this space. Compliance officers like yourself who are dealing with such an ambiguous, Byzantine ways of interpreting law are struggling today. So at this point, let me bring in JAYAPRAKASH ji into the conversation. JAYAPRAKASH ji is based in Chennai, compliance officer at Panasonic. Panasonic, like Sony, is a multinational company, a global organization, has very, very mature practices around governance, risk, and compliance. Let's hear from him. He brings the manufacturing perspective. He brings the multinational perspective. Let's hear from him on what are the challenges, key compliance challenges in India.
Thank you, Rishi. So if you see that Panasonic applies into the manufacturing and the selling of kitchen appliances for last 30 plus years in industry. It has own integral management system, like it's including the productions, sale, marketing, R&D in under one roof. It has sales and marketing officers, 9 states India, who shall take care of their respective region and also exploring the export market about 50 plus countries, including Japan, where the technology had shifted from there. The company is producing 3 major products such as rice cookers, mixer grinder, wet grinders, with the SKU of about 400 plus models. Further, our manufacturing unit is at Chennai for our entire production operation, and all supplies flow from Chennai only. So being we are into the FMCG sector and doing the marketing directly through our distributor and dealers, we could foresee many complaints issue in terms of the consumer related litigations, labor issues, warranty claim issues due to multi offices, warehouses, etc. It is more complex to deal with the complaints because of the multi locations. So I would like to point out one recent issue here, recent litigation what we have faced now. In spite of the COVID-19, the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, so void its notification dated 1st April 2020, as informed effective from 1st October 2020. That means after a month later, all the manufacturer of the rice cooker should also to get the registered with the BIS certificate. That is for the IAS certificate under the compulsory registration scheme. The problem here is that due to the lockdown issues, the process take more time because of there is no logistic, no production happen, and further that still working on our product to do the durable testing at the lab, where the central government direct us to do testing, because the central government given the only 70 lab testing laboratories where we can do only we can do the testing on that. But due to the government sector, they could not be able to operate, and they don't have the manpower to do our testing. There are so many issues there. Similarly, last year also same period we got the one notification for the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Same thing for the BAS for the mixer grinder with effect from May 2019. So why I'm pointing out these things is that instead of the COVID-19 issue of the government insisting to the more testing to safeguard the to safety and other requirement of the products. So I would like to point out one more thing here is that our the Panasonic founder, Mr. Matsushita, when he started his industry, that is 1918, 100 years ago, his priority will be the first safety, then employee satisfaction, then quality, then compliance, then profit. So he took the 5 bucket out of 5 bucket, one will be the compliances. He clearly told in his book saying that if you achieve the first 4, like safety, employee satisfaction, quality of the product, and the compliances, automatically profit will come. So this is the main core the process of this the company. The major challenge in here is that most of the compliance team in middle size organizations is very, very small. They are also depend on the external resources on demand basis, like external legal consultant, chartered accountant, anyone. This is due to the unavailability of the expertise, people and the resources within the organization. As Rishi pointed out, the many acts, filing, complaints are existing in India. However, it is important to know the accurate list of the applicable acts and the complaints to our organization, where we can address it properly, prioritally, and proper way. Further, many publications are released for notification, circular GO on day-to-day basis. Before we understand the one notification, so other circular came into picture. It is very difficult to the compliance officer to understand that how where we are and how we can complete that. Another one is the lack of artificial intelligence and tools technology available in the market, because my business is not same duplicate for the other business. It may be I have some identity, I have some unique, but whether the same tool and artificial intelligence can be take from the other organization where we can use it. The last one is the lack of awareness of the suppliers and vendors, or maybe we can call the GST register, because they are not filing on time. With that, we are facing the hard time to when we are availing the input tax credit and sometimes GST issue. So this from my side for the compliance challenge what we are facing in our company.
So beautifully articulated. Too many acts, too many laws, lot of diversity, frequent changes, few resources, lack of expertise. Fully agree with you. Couldn't agree more with you on some of those aspects. So thank you so much for bringing that perspective. Let me now turn over to Ram from Apollo Hospital. COVID has brought in a lot of spotlight on healthcare. There is a lot of stress on healthcare infrastructure in the country. And having worked as Avantis in this space for a while with a number of customers, we do realize that healthcare, like other sectors, is highly regulated. And when the stress goes up on the sector, I want to bring in Ram and hear what is his experience of managing compliance in healthcare and what are the challenges.
Sir, good afternoon. Thank you, Rishi, such an opportunity to limelighting the things. Okay, I work in different industry, manufacturing, IT use, and the trading organization. So comparing to the other industry, as a healthcare, we need to comply the minimum 200 regulations. Minimum 200 regulations, irrespective of the size of the hospital. As you said, apart from the state and central, we need to comply some of the things pertaining to the domicile and panchayat. So to the extent of the public, wherever it is the law is implemented to safeguarding the public interest, we need to fulfill by way of doing a service, purchase of equipments, and recruitment of either the doctors, nurses, technicians, medical, paramedicals. Everything comes under the different regulatory and different ambit of the regulations. So we need to fulfill each and every key aspects. And apart from that, in medical industry being essential and become the very sensitive industry than the others, it is directly impacting the public and their individual health. So as a hospital, we need to much care on the compliances requirements, which is implemented or enforcing by the regulators. In more than the regulatory requirements, getting the licenses, because based on the usage of equipment, either radiology equipments or the surgical equipments, or be ultrasound related matters, or be any other technical related things, those. And second thing is relating to the usage of material, including drugs. There is a number of regulations relating to the which you can use. You can keep on monitor about the drugs which is which we are procuring, whether it is authorized or unauthorized, or from the dealers who is supplying is authorized. So those parameters also we need to check out now, because being a healthcare, we much caution about the material what we are using for rendering the service. That is the more alarming one thing. And second and third part is disposal. This is another hygiene related matter. Once the person is stepping into the hospital, we need to maintain the cleanness and the hygiene to protect the interest and protect the safety and health of the public, including our own source of family members. And in disposal mechanism, apart from the state, in state itself, disposal of water, disposal of medicine waste, disposal of blood and blood related matters, or disposal of linen matters. Each and everything we need to meticulously we need to monitor to the safeguard the environment and safeguard to the service to the public. That is another one. And next challenge is monitoring mechanism. Being a healthcare, we cannot say when the authorities or regulator come for inspection and what grounds, because being a regulators, they have enormous power to stepping into the hospital without notification. And they may see from the inception of documents, how we are maintaining, how we are doing the service, how we are monitoring, or how we are maintaining the confidentiality of the information. So bigger challenges now we are after the implementation of e-governance in last 5 years. So more than 25 regulations become revamped, and we have sensitized on the much on the medical records related matters. Once we are stepping into the global market and we are doing service to the international patients, we need to comply the global regulations too than the domicile.
So is it fair to say that you totally agree with some of our other panelists and their view that the compliance environment is really complex. The number of regulations that you have to comply with is just too many. There is a lot of dependence on people. The cost of poor compliance has gone up. The penalties are high. Inspections continue to create an issue. Inspectors can stop by at any point in time, unannounced, can spend a lot of time, can create day-to-day operating hassles and so on. Now, before we move into the next part of our discussion today, which is some of the best practices that each one of you may have put together over a period of time, how are you managing this, including, I would love to understand the level of digitization of compliance program in your company. I would want to engage our audience and get you. I'm requesting to put up a poll here. There are 5 simple questions, and I would request each and every person to take the poll. Abhay, I request you to bring up the poll now. I'm sure you can see the poll questions on your screen. Please go ahead and answer those questions. We'll take another 15 seconds. Simple questions, just to get a pulse of what our audience thinks about managing compliance. Last 5 seconds. Okay, well, I'm hoping that all our panelists have been able to take the poll along with over 200 audience that are with us today. Abhay, can we see the results now? A quick pulse poll. Okay, so a whopping 79% of us believe that compliance management in the company is complicated. 71% of us agree that there is a dedicated compliance officer in the company. A whopping 56% do not outsource compliance functions. So you can imagine they're doing a lot of compliance in-house, so that expertise is required. And Ram mentioned about, JAYAPRAKASH also talked about too many changes. Now imagine if over 50% of the people are doing it in-house, all of that skill and capability and processes are required. We have almost a 50-50 on how confident are you that you're meeting all the applicable compliances in your organization. I'm surprised that, there are 50% who don't believe that they are following all the compliances. And that actually is a big problem, because large number of CXOs that we talk to every year, they say they are not sure at any point in time whether they are in compliance with everything that is applicable. And last item, do you feel burdened with compliances because of changes, ambiguity and complexity? I think the winner there is a yes. Over 88% people believe that this is a big problem. So thank you so much, audience. You've been a great sport in telling us what you think about the compliance and how it is being managed in your organization. So we are at 3:35 now. We have about 25 more minutes in the conversation. Let me change gears now and talk about what are we doing to manage this compliance complexity. When we're dealing with a few thousand compliances in a year, these include licenses, registrations, permissions, consent orders, returns, registers, challans, payment, notices, displays, remittances. These are all examples of compliances that you're all dealing with. And each one of you is running a fairly large size, multi-locational, multi-business in some cases kind of an organization present in more than one state. So let me start with JAYAPRAKASH yourself. What are the tips for our audience today? What they should be doing in order to manage their compliances effectively based on your experience? I think you're on mute.
As I pointed out, we have limited resources to do the compliances. So we are dependent on the resources internally or externally. Of course, the software tools and some automation So we get the support from to make the complaints from that. I've been the complaint officer. It is my responsibility to complain all the complaints on time. If delay, obviously we need to pay for the cost. So our parent company is at Japan and a listed company at Tokyo Stock Exchange. And the last year it has about 581 companies they consolidated, because the group has 581 companies. We are one of among them. Since our parent company are listed, so we are under the surveillance of them with every year Japan stocks audit. Therefore, we do not have regular meeting. We do have regular meeting with them and sharing and updating all the pending legal case, tax litigation. Due to this follow-up, we are always intact with the day-to-day hassle-free compliance. Further, to monitor the effect of the overall compliance, we have engaged the team of internal auditors to review the compliance in terms of its risk and severity. Always, we get in touch with the department and legal consultant to follow up to complete the pending assessment and litigation. As a compliance officer, we should alert the management before something is going not well. So we should create a culture for anti-corruption compliance. Also create and adopt the standard operating procedure for all compliances as part of the company's code of business conduct. We try to minimize the delegation to the high level compliance to the lower level staff unless they have all access to perform the deliverables. Also make them understand the consequences of the violation of the act and rules. Also we instruct to the team that keep all the key document digital form, even it is required for the assessment or not. It will support you to track it quickly when needs. So no assessment does very next year after closure of accounts. It takes some time, even sometimes 3 to 5 years.
It's fair to say that digitization helps you manage and control your compliance environment better than managing in an ad hoc, manual, paper-based and people-dependent compliance program. Would it be fair to say that?
Yes.
Excellent. Yeah. So that's a great one, because digitization is something that we've been working on for many years, and yes. Over the last almost 7 years, we've worked with over 1,500 legal entities in the country to help them migrate. And when you're dealing with thousands of compliances, it's almost impossible to stay on top of all of them without some kind of a digital program. Now, let me, request Rajkumar ji to come into the discussion and talk about what practices have they adopted and institutionalized. How have they taken up digitization, if any? How are they staying on top of all their compliance?
The only saving grace among all this, pandemic and the plethora of laws, and also 3,000 changes a year, the saving grace is technology. Now, technology over the last few years, or I must say that last 10-15 years, actually technology has started playing its role. And we as compliance officers are also helped a great lot with technology. To talk about our company, we have also implemented a technological tool where we monitor all the compliances applicable to the company. And I, being the compliance officer, I carry the danda. And I wherever I feel that there is the tool is not updated, I keep chasing the person to not only update the tool, but also he will remember next time that I have to do it on time. And fortunately, I can say that in my company, we have almost 99.99% engagement. So, but that is part. That is, I want to talk about something more here. Is that this technological tool is about all the codified law. There is something which is there is some part of compliance which remains uncodified till date in India, and that is like your code of conduct. Well, code of conduct in a sense that it is taken from different laws, but as a code of conduct, any company can have its own different code of conduct. There is no standard form of code of conduct, but generally we in code of conduct we include the harassment free, the workplace and the equal employment opportunities, the anti-bribery, gift policy, and all those things. So there in our company, we are very strict about it, and we have been training our employees on a continuous basis. We on annual basis we make use of technology again to impart training to the all the employees, and also on biennial basis we do a face-to-face training. Only last year I myself did training for more than 35 classroom sessions, and trained all those more than our all our employees, and talked about anti-bribery policies, anti-corruption policies, and all code of conduct topics. Besides that, yes, even IT security is another topic which we take help of technology to imbibe principles of IT security, because IT security is again very important aspect nowadays. And yes, these are the tools we use. And also management, see that it should flow from the top. The top management needs to drive home the point in every meeting that compliance is important, and it's everybody's responsibility. It is not only compliance officers and a director's responsibility, but it's responsibility of all employees. And management in every management meeting has been driving this point home, that it's everybody's responsibility. And with that, I can carry the baton and say that you need to do this.
Lovely. Well, few very important points made. Creating a culture of compliance, making compliance a shared responsibility, leveraging technology, and all the staying on top of thousands of changes that happen, having a strong control mechanism so that compliances are not missed. So some excellent points out there, Rajkumar ji. Thank you so much. Now let me bring Amitava Ghosh into the conversation. We heard some very specific items that Amitava spoke about. And before that, Amitava, can I request you to show our audience the two books that you authored? One of the only authors that we have as a thought leader in our group today. I would love our audience to know the names of these books so that they can benefit from all the work that you've been doing in this space. So can you put up the book for a moment for the benefit of our audience?
So this is the first book which has been co-authored by me. I being the first author. With me was Professor Amitava, who is a director and professor of Aligarh Muslim University. So this is a book which contains the employment law piece. Nowadays, HR, finance, company secretaries, they all look into compliance. So for them, they may not read all the 44 laws or the 37 laws, what we have as a central laws. For them, I have given the synoptic view of every law. They just need to read those 3 pages to understand the complete law of the book. So this took me around.
The name of the book is Labor and Environment Laws in India. I would request our audience to take a look at it and benefit from all the hard work that Amitava has done to bring out that book. And there's another book that recently came out, and I believe it was published during the lockdown, and that's
this is the second book, which talks about the gig economy, which talks gig economy for the next 40-50 years. We may not live to see this piece running in India, and the employment crisis should get over in the next 40 to 50 years. This book inspired me by Robin Chay's quote that my father did 1 job in his lifetime. I have done 6 jobs in my lifetime, and my kids will do 6 jobs at the same time. So this book talks about the fintech industry, the ITS, for the content writers, for the aggregators, for the food industry. So not much is written, but yes, about more or less most of the points are covered, which are required for the today's growth of the Indian economy.
Audience, I hope all of you have taken the names of the two books. I have already ordered my signed copy and I should receive it shortly from Amitava. Very excited to receive one of those. And I request you to look up the books. I think, Amitava, they are available on Amazon for our audience.
Yeah, it's available worldwide.
It's available worldwide. So let's benefit from the collective experience that he has put in these two books. So Amitava, coming back to you for the question at hand, what are some of these best practices, including tools, technologies, digitization, culture, that you have leveraged in your organization and continue to manage explosive growth at Ola?
I belong from the old school of thought. And while I talk of employment law compliance, it's more of a ground compliance. As rightly said by one of the panelists, that we still need to go to the panchayats to get registrations. I pick up the state called Gujarat, which seems to be the most advanced state because our Prime Minister belongs from that state. Still, the professional tax has to go to the panchayat to, if my office is in a panchayat area. There is still not online, they have gone. So we talk of big technologies. Technology is very easy when you have limited legislations with you. The regulations might be more. If the legislation is less and the regulation is more, it is easy to go digitization. But if you pick up the employment law and if you pick up all the state laws, West Bengal has number of laws more, whereas Karnataka has got labor laws less. I give you a unique example here. We talk of leave provisions. Now, the state of Madhya Pradesh has got 39 leaves, whereas Delhi has got only 15. The overtime depends upon the state. The spread over depends upon the state. The hours of work is also now depending on the state. Just because it is Tata's post-COVID in Jharkhand, they have gone for 12 hours of work. Now, who is going to check the regulations? Is it the regulations or is it the legislations? What is that? So unless and until a complete modified amendment, modification of laws are done and it gets into one bucket, what we are talking of codification of laws. All the 37 laws getting into 4 codes is very important. And now, while we run through this, the Parliamentary Standing Committee, which I have quoted in my last LinkedIn, which got published 3 days back, the Parliamentary Standing Committee advisors have been rejected by the powerful India government. Are we still saying that we are going to go back those 50, 70 years and employers will be still struggling? If the state empowerments have been given, it has to be made easy for the employers to ease out their business. It is not to be complicated. But HR remains a ground level compliance. Digitization is definitely helping us. Technology is definitely helping us. More so, the online process is definitely getting us. It's helping us. But the enforcement officers of the 1980s and 1970s who have been recruited in the labor department, their mindset needs to be changed. The red tapeism has to go out. While you ease out compliance, India cannot be another China where employees are not getting benefited and employees are running at the whims and fancies of the government so that they have to run the business. Compliance is not only about employees. Compliance is also about the employees, the benefits they get. How many of us are aware of the Maternity Benefit Act which got amended in 2017? The latest provision which has come up on on the work from home for women employees. How many employees other than the manufacturing sector has given them the leverage to work from home? Nobody has got a time to do it. We are moving fast. While the technology has come, the technology has also given us a back gate of moving fast. So while we talk of compliance, we also must be aware that compliance has to start from home, from the organization itself, rather than my external counsel guiding me that what I need to do and what I not need to do. I give you a unique example and I will end it here. I plead my own case till today, which I used to do 15, 17 years back. They are the best of the councils we have. I was part of the BC Prabhakar's team for 5 years. But I still don't get them. The reason because for one opinion, they give 5 advices. Now, as an employer, it remains on me which one to pick and choose. While I plead my own case, it becomes confidence on the organization. That the winning over the case is much easier than my external counsel standing and briefing on my matter in his own way.
Sure. So that some excellent and wonderful points being raised here, and I hope government is paying attention, the policymakers and lawmakers are paying attention to all the nuggets and the pearls of wisdom that are being given out here. For our audience, I want to request you to start putting some questions. You will see a Q&A box at the bottom. We will come to Ram, and after that we will start our Q&A session. But I do want you to start putting your questions for our audience. So with that, Ram, let me come to you and ask you, how are you staying on top of all your compliances while you're managing compliances for the largest hospital and healthcare chain in the country?
Yeah. As far as the Apollo is legend of healthcare, we have centralized all the compliances, monitoring from Chennai. Across more than 50 hospitals, we have covered in single platform. All the hospitals we have different segments. One is the clinic segment, one is the pharmacy, one is the hospitals. So as per my control, I am taking care of the entire hospital. We are having a centralized tool. So monitoring the compliances is more than 6,000 licenses for 50 hospitals, which we are maintaining. And we are sending automatic alerts, automatic follow-ups with our own departments and regulators. And we are triggering to the concerned department 1 or 2 months ahead to the requirement to fulfill the compliance requirements. So in such a way, the team will initiate the process and submit the document in advance to fulfill the requirements. Because our organization is being a listed company, so we are going under more than 7 audits in a year. And every quarter we are doing the compliance audit, and we are doing conducting the familiarization session, and we are having the training and development, conducting a program for our employees depends on their roles and responsibilities. And apart from that, we have implemented the policies and SOPs, department-wise and roles-wise SOP, which we have implemented to fulfill the requirements under the compliances and safety and satisfaction of their customers. That is the main intention of our chairman. Any point of time, none of the customers go out without satisfaction of service. So that's why we are in the first across the India in such a way that thing is given to us. So just based on his guidance, we are taking a lead and doing a service.
Absolutely. So I think we are in the last 5 minutes of our dialogue today. Some really insightful items have come out. A bunch of questions are already here. Let me start reading some of these questions, and then we can direct these questions to specific panelists. What's the scope of new compliance service providers in the current market? Any specific thoughts on new business models? Anyone wants to take that question? This is a rapid fire round. We'll take maybe 30 seconds.
Actually, what I can say that at present in India, no one can say for opening any company, these are regulations applicable, unless otherwise you are not delegating or appointing some professionals. If you take F&B or if you take manufacturing or anything, apart from the taxation, HR and IT, is n number of compliances or regulations are there based on the product which you are proposed to manufacture. In such a way, the technology becomes developed and regulations are implemented by the regulators
Sure.
to the public.
So there is a question saying, how are you able to track penalties due to non-compliance or poor compliance? Anybody wants to take that? Do we track it? If yes, how do we track it?
What I can say at the time of getting a license from regulators, but keep in diary, if you're not fulfilling the compliances, what is your liability? Then only you can mitigate, unless otherwise it is not possible.
Rajkumar,
And the keyboard will change also. That is one more thing.
Yeah. Fortunately, I did not have to bear any penalties last so many years, so I did not have to keep any record for that.
Is this an on-screen answer or a real answer?
It's a real answer, and yes, but yes, one needs to be very careful about it. And being the compliance officer, when I have technological tool at my disposal, I know that where the compliance has not been done. So we must take all the precautions that all compliances are done. Another thing which I can point out here is that if any compliance has not been done within the prescribed time, the compliance officer should take steps to do it at the earliest possible. So at least you can mitigate the severity. So, but fortunately, I didn't have to be here.
So there are three questions which are related, and I think Amitava should come in and answer those. The first one is, do we feel labor codes will bring about a change in labor compliances? The second one is, a lot of changes. So the question, I'm not clear about Kamlesh's question. He is referring to changes in labor codes. And then Rahul has asked a question around gig employee compliances in India and social security around that. So I think Amitava is in the best position to answer these. Amitava, over to you.
What is the first question you referred?
Will the labor codes bring about an improvement in labor compliance?
The code of wages is already legislated. There are 3 codes which are awaited. Probably now India government is giving the excuses of COVID. Code of social security is very important because that's how the gig workforce will be, their benefits, their welfare will get covered. Code of occupational safety, health and working conditions is another code, and code of industrial regulations. That's the 3rd code. So I'm hopeful all 3 codes, when it comes out, the compliances would be much easier, specifically on the HR side. And there's another point here I should make it, that while the state government now will have their own empowerment to change the regulations, some can make it 12 hours, some can make it 14 hours, some can make it 10 hours. The compliance officer sitting in Bangalore or a compliance officer sitting in Chennai will have a difficult and tough time when he's controlling 100+ offices across India.
Sure. So another question here is for Rajkumar ji. It pertains to entertainment industry. Now that entertainment industry is moving to newer platforms, streaming and online, do you feel more regulations hinder the growth and reaching out to audiences? You're on mute, Rajkumar ji.
Sorry. Yeah, see, actually, the entertainment is now moving to over the top platforms, OTT platforms, like we call them, Netflix, Hotstar, Sony Live, all these are all OTT platforms. Now there has been debate going on about regulating these platforms. So far, there is no government mandate, government regulation regulating the content on these platforms, but these platforms have themselves made an association and they are representing to the government that we will regulate ourselves. And this self-regulation is working beautifully in the case of, say, entertainment channels, where there is a BCCC Broadcasting Complaint Council, and there is, in the case of news broadcasting also, there is a self-regulatory organization. So if there are any complaints related to content of these channels, then the respective self-regulatory organizations handles it, and they have been doing a wonderful job of it. Now for OTT also there has been debate going on, and the OTT platforms have prepared, they have organized a self-regulatory organization, and hopefully, the self-regulatory organization will be able to regulate the content on OTT platforms as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Rajkumar ji, for that comprehensive answer. We are 2 minutes past the top of the hour. It's 2 minutes past 4 o'clock. There are a few more questions, and I'll probably take a quick stab at it to answer. One of the questions is, how do you stay on top of all the regulatory changes? There is no simple way. Just so you know, regulatory changes are published on 2,233 websites in India. There are anywhere between 15 to 20 changes a day, leading up to about 3,000 changes a year. Please refer to avantis.co.in, which is our corporate website, and we publish a lot of all of these regulatory changes free of cost for all of you. So please subscribe to a daily, weekly, monthly newsletter. There is no charge for it. You can also go and download our app called Rules Book from Android or iOS platforms. All the information is available electronically. You can go to our website at avantis.co.in. Again, there are a few more questions on codes. I think we will do a separate webinar on codes, and I'm sure Amitava can throw a lot more light on the codes, the key challenges, and how we can revolutionize and change this. There are 32,000 compliances in labor across center and state. There are about 2,745 different formats of returns and registers. It is a topic that needs a full hour, and we will organize another webinar on the subject. But first of all, let me thank our audience. You've been a great sport, very engaged. The polls came out wonderful. The Q&A, there are a number of intriguing questions. Unfortunately, for the paucity of time, we may not be able to get to every question, but I think if you refer to the video of today's call, you should find answers, because we have touched upon a lot of these topics. My special thanks to our panelists, starting with Rajkumar ji. Thank you so much for taking the time. JAYAPRAKASH ji, Amitava ji, and Ram. I really appreciate you taking the time joining us on the panel today. This panel attempts to provide a voice to the compliance officers in India so that we can deliberate the challenges, which is the symptom, the diagnosis, and the prescription, if I were to use analogies here, of the regulatory cholesterol that ails India, and how collectively this group of professionals can raise its voice, raise the key issues. Hopefully the policy people are listening into these, and they get some bright ideas to transform India, formalize India, industrialize India, financialize India, so that we can achieve the $5 trillion and $10 trillion GDP goals in the next 5 to 10 years. So thank you so much for being here. You've been a great audience and great panelists, wonderful discussion, and I look forward to having you on the same platform another time in near future.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.